Welcome back to Major Misconduct. Scott Taylor, the Major, Curt Keilback, the Mr. Conduct. Our game misconduct is gone. He's like,
boys, you ever gone?
Boys, wow.
He wound up.
He does get you wound up. Kind of fun. We're not quite as wound up. We're a little more laid back. We're at Fort Place Sports Bar on a very, very warm day in Winnipeg, and it's 360Winnipeg.ca. Penn State University was handed one of the largest penalties in the history of the NCAA for the Sandusky incident, and I'm trying to find a comfortable, careful way to talk about
you can't. There's
children and victims and Jerry Sandusky being an animal and a monster. But I guess as I sit down and I look at all of the things that have happened to Penn State football, my only concern for Penn State football is for the Penn State players, because the players had nothing to do with any of this. Now, the NCAA has given every player the right to transfer, but you've got to understand that most other universities have used their scholarship money up. They've also probably got their teams ready to go. Now, some schools will be prepared to take these Penn State players, but a lot of schools won't be. So a lot of these guys are going to suffer through a horrible, terrible situation that was created by people who are either dead or fired or long gone. And I wonder how the players get penalized the way they do for something that adults that turned out to be not very good caretakers of the program are fully responsible for.
Yeah, and you're right, because they've got some guys, like you say, will wind up at different schools. Some may even go into a Division II school.
Sure.
But some guys who maybe had been, dreaming all their lives of having the opportunity to play for Penn State, thought they had the opportunity. Now all of a sudden they're left out in the cold for something for which they had no control. But still, something had to be done. I mean,
yes.
They had to make a great example. They can't do it the Canadian way, where Graham James gets a slap on the wrist.
That's right.
We found out in the U.S. They're much more harsh in that situation, even when it comes to NCAA, which is traditionally a kind of hide-and-seek kind of situation in a lot of things they do. But no, it's a harsh penalty, but the unfortunate part is, like you say, the players who really had nothing to do with it, and the players who haven't played yet and may never get the opportunity to do so.
Now, for something that didn't happen on the field, wasn't cheating, this is a social problem. It didn't happen on the football field. Did the penalty fit the crime?
I would have to say yes. The only thing about it that I thought was interesting is the paternal family has indicated they didn't really investigate him. It was the prosecutor's words that took for it. Sandusky was guilty, and there was a cover-up there, but they seem to feel that maybe he didn't get really a fair trial. But there's every reason to believe, and from everything we knew, that he was totally aware of what was all going on. His records have been totally wiped out, and I guess he was certainly guilty in that regard by disregarding what was going on.
Very, very sad situation. Penn State University given essentially the death penalty by the NCAA, although they don't want to call it that. No. It pretty much is the death penalty. And the Big Ten is going to be coming next, handing out their penalties as well. I don't think Penn State's going to be much of a...
I'm curious about one thing. They got a $60 million fine. Where does that money go?
That money is going to go to... children's advocate agencies in the United States, all over the United States, hundreds of them, to protect children against predators like Jerry Sandusky. I think it was a great decision. And the interesting thing about the $60 million is basically what a year of revenue is for football. But what does that do to the other sports at Penn State University? Because that's what football funds at Penn State. It's going to hurt a lot of students. This terrible, horrible thing is going to hurt a lot of people who had nothing to do with it, and I think that that's the most unfortunate part of all these penalties. Anyway, we have hashed that around. They had to be penalized, and the NCAA certainly came down on the throat of Penn State University's football program. I'm the coach, Scott Taylor. That's Curt Keilback. We're Major Misconduct on 360Winnipeg.ca, and we're live from Fort Place Sports Bar.